They said no man could defeat him. They said his name would echo through the ages. Arjun Dev, the immortal warrior, the flame that never dimmed. But history forgot to tell what happened after the glory faded. Because sometimes the loudest applause hides the deepest silence. And the greatest war is the one a man fights within. Arjun Dev, son of Vaishara's son. A warrior carved from courage, raised on prophecy. He was lightning on the battlefield, swift, precise, merciless. He fought not for peace but for pride. He fought not for freedom but for the echo of his own name. Kingdoms rose to salute him. Children were named after him. Temples were built in his honor. But when the drums of war went silent, Arjun stood alone, surrounded not by men, but by the ghosts of his victories. One night, under a moon the color of ashes, he stood before the great mirror of Vaishara's palace. Gold shimmered behind him. The reflection smiled back, proud, perfect, untouchable. And yet, behind his eyes, something stirred, something hollow. The weight of all he had won felt heavier than all he had lost. That night sleep refused him. And when it finally came, it brought a dream, or perhaps a warning. He stood on an empty battlefield, and through the mist walked a figure cloaked in ash, a hermit with eyes like silver moons. The man spoke just one line, "You have conquered the world, Arjun Dev. Now face the war within." Arjun woke in terror, the taste of smoke on his tongue, the whisper still echoing in his soul. From that day the sword that once felt like an extension of his hand grew heavier, colder. Each victory left him emptier than before. His enemies no longer feared him, not because they had grown stronger but because his spirit had grown tired. He sought the counsel of sages. He offered gold at temples. He knelt before idols carved in stone. But the silence answered louder than any god. And so, one night before dawn, he walked away from the palace without a word. No crown, no armor, no farewell. The people whispered, "Madness." But Arjun called it searching. He walked for days, then months, then years. Through deserts that burned by day and froze by night. Through forests that whispered forgotten hymns. Everywhere he went, people recognized him. "Are you not Arjun Dev, the great warrior?" He would smile, shake his head, and say nothing. In one small village by a river, he saw a child feeding a wounded bird. The boy looked up and said, "A hero doesn't save kingdoms. He saves hearts." The words sank into him like arrows dipped in truth. For the first time Arjun wept, not for the dead but for the man he had become. He followed the river north, guided by whispers of a place said to reveal one's soul. A mountain where light met shadow, and truth walked hand in hand with pain. At the mountain's peak he found a cave glowing with faint blue light. Inside were walls of living mirrors, and in each reflection he saw a version of himself. The boy who craved his father's praise. The man who measured worth by victory. The warrior who killed not for justice but for pride. Each image stared back, silent and accusing. Then, in the final reflection, he saw the hermit, the same figure from his vision, cloaked in ash. The hermit stepped forward, and as the light shifted, Arjun realized with horror, the hermit's face was his own. He fell to his knees. The mirrors around him began to crack, each fracture whispering the same truth, that the man he had been was built from pride, and pride was the one enemy he had never slain. Arjun closed his eyes and whispered his first real prayer. Not for victory, not for power, but for forgiveness. The ground trembled, the air shimmered, and from the cracks in the cave floor, a river of light poured out, washing him in gold. His armor melted into dust. His sword dissolved into smoke. All that remained were tears. When the light faded, he stood reborn, barefoot, unarmed, at peace. The cave was gone. In its place stretched an open sky, clear and endless. The wind carried the scent of rain and jasmine. And for the first time Arjun smiled, not as a warrior but as a man who had finally come home. Years passed. Legends of Arjun Dev faded into myth. But stories began to rise of a wandering sage, a healer who touched the sick, who fed the poor, who spoke with the calm of one who had seen both heaven and hell. Few knew who he was. But those who met him said there was something in his eyes, a peace too deep for words. One evening, as the sun bled across the horizon, the sage sat beneath a great banyan tree. In his palm lay a handful of ashes, the last remains of his old armor. He let the wind carry them away and whispered, "The fire that burns the ego is the same that lights the soul." The sky turned gold and the river below caught fire with reflection. Somewhere in that quiet, a new name was written, not on stone or scroll, but in the hearts of those who still fight their silent wars. Because in the end, the story of Arjun Dev isn't about conquest. It's about surrender. It's about the moment a man chooses peace over pride, truth over victory, and love over legend. His ashes became his awakening. His silence became his song. And his story became a mirror, for all who have ever lost themselves chasing what could never fill them. And maybe, just maybe, this isn't about Arjun at all. It's about us. About the battles we fight quietly in our hearts, the wars that never make history but define our souls. Because somewhere inside each of us, there is a warrior still searching for peace. A heart waiting to lay down its sword. A soul yearning to come home. If this story touched something in you, don't let it fade. Share it. Reflect on it. Let someone else remember that even the greatest warriors must one day surrender to the truth. And if you are fighting your own invisible war tonight, let this be your sign. The fire that burns you now can become the light that guides you home. Because the greatest victory is not over others, but over yourself.